mainly I think about Jeff and when I first met him, and that he is probably one of the most warm, caring, loving, cutest guys that I have ever met, and mostly I can feel that he just really cares about people, and I don't think that that's in the credentials, but he's a wonderful person, and I can't wait to hear him this morning. So with that, Jeff.
Thanks. Takes one to know one, Corky. Thanks so much. That was very nice. I still need those kinds of positive thoughts about me because I've had a much longer history in my life, I think, of not feeling too good about myself as a gay person, and I think that's a lot about what I'm going to talk today about, how being a part of a group like you is making me feel a whole lot better about myself and allowing me to keep coming out. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to speak at this conference today, and as I look out here, I mean, it's just the faces and knowing you, and last night's activities that were so much fun. We played a lot of games for those of you who weren't here, and they did some other things with the mentoring groups that I wasn't here for. Just a lot of neat stuff beginning to happen for the very first time in Montana, and it's always wonderful to be a part of making history. So we're all doing that together today, and that's a great thing. For my own sake, in terms of how I'll end up, what areas of this talk I'd like to emphasize, I'd like to get a show of hands about a few categories here. How many teenagers are in the audience? All right, great, well, that's wonderful. And how about early 20s?
Okay, now we get to taste them.
Don't worry, I'm not going to go too high up there. Over 25. Okay, all right. How many are out to families? Great. How many are out to friends in their life? Okay. And how many professionals, people who provide services or in some way relate with gay, lesbian people from a professional caring, that could be teacher, counselor, whatever. Okay. Great. Well, thank you. I'm going to try very much to address the concerns of all present. It's a big task. The topic that I've been asked to speak on is coming out, family, and peer group issues. And there's going to be a wide range of that. I think Donnie's talk last night talked about diversity of process, and we're all going through different things. Each of us has a different experience in terms of coming out that we have to deal with. So I'll try to generalize as much as possible. I'll leave it up to you in some ways to try and fit in how some of what I'm saying matches your own experience. And I will welcome throughout the talk comments and thoughts you may have that I'm not including in the talk. First of all, I'd like to talk about the importance of coming out just a little bit and highlight that. Last night we played a game, and in this game we were all sitting on the floor, and our lovely mentors came around and put little tags on our back. And on these tags there was some word or phrase, and our task was to there were 4 categories, and our task was to find the people that were in our category. But we didn't know what our category was. And we knew we wanted to be with other people like us, but we weren't really sure how we could go about finding them. We had to put that together. And that really struck me as what it's like to be a gay person growing up at first, when you don't know about other gay people, you don't know what identifies other gay people, you're not sure what about you is gay and how that's going to all match. So you go through a lot of life trying to figure out where you fit in. And coming out is a real important process for all of us, because once we're out, then we're more identifiable, and we're more aware of other people who are as well. So that sense of belonging that we all want to find people like us, starts to happen the more we come out. I also work with a client who recently shared a story that I think is important. This is someone who struggles a lot with the whole idea of being gay, especially being out, and is very fearful about what it means to be a gay person, what kinds of reactions people are going to have to him, and that sort of thing. And he told a story about a little breakthrough for him. And he was driving to the grocery store, and as he was waiting for a parking space, as one car was pulling out, he noticed the bumper sticker on the car, and it said, come out wherever you are." And he said it was a wild-looking lesbian who was in the car, who he just would love to have met, because he wanted to thank her for giving him that message, and that someone else was strong enough and felt good enough about themselves to have that bumper sticker on the car really made him feel a little more willing to keep trying to do, go through the coming out process. Just to, so we're all on the same page about definitions, I'm going to talk about two different kinds of coming out. Coming out to self, which is the recognition and acceptance of sexual and affectional orientation. And I put affectional in there because oftentimes the focus in our culture tends to be on if you're gay or lesbian, then people immediately jump to the idea of sex. And sex is only a part of our lives, and there's a whole lot more to it, especially in terms of our feelings for someone else. And so I include affectional orientation there. And then coming out to others, particularly family and friends. I think that process, that's what I mean by coming out. And I guess a question that I had is, why is it so hard to come out? What is it that what do we mean when we're talking about coming out anyway? What's coming out? And why is that such a hard thing for us? And it's pretty obvious in a homophobic and heterosexist culture that it's going to be difficult to be who we are in the face of all that. And a lot of fear is going to be involved. And I just thought it'd be nice to spend maybe a couple minutes talking about why it's hard to come out and having you share some of your thoughts on that. Why is it hard to come out for you? A few volunteers to.
You're afraid people are going to be like, I don't want to spend time with you.
So rejection. Somebody else said rejection. They don't want to spend time with you.
Lose your job.
Lose your job. Yeah, you're not normal.
You grew up in society, your family that's heterosexual, you have no sense of identity.
Right. Identity, yeah, you're not really sure who you are in some ways, that's right.
I would say maybe not knowing what to be afraid of. I've come out, I've made myself vulnerable. How is that going to affect me? And I don't know what direction that could come at me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not any specific thing sometimes for me. It's I've given this information away, and how have I harmed myself that I can't even be a step ahead of.
The uncertainty of it all, yeah.
Disappointing my family.
So you don't want to disappoint others, That's a big one for a lot of people, I think, that we overlook is, we really don't want to disappoint people. They have certain ideas, dreams, expectations of us, and when we don't fulfill those because we're gay or lesbian, we're concerned about disappointing things.
As a parent, I just get tired of defending my gayness.
Yeah, it's tiring, isn't it? It's like an extra some people have talked about it coming out as an extra developmental task. The psychological theorists talk about tasks that everybody goes through as they mature. To reach a certain level of maturity, you have to accomplish this task, this task, this task. Well, coming out is a whole other task, and it's something that we're always doing. So it takes a lot of energy. You had something.
Just as my
Direct or indirect punishment. Yeah, somehow you're going to get punished. Okay, well those are some good thoughts, and I'm sure there's others, but those are some of the reasons why it is so difficult to come out. But it's really important to come out, and here's some of the reasons why. 46% of Americans say that they do not know a lesbian or gay person. So that's quite a number. The 54%, they probably do, but they don't think they do. The 54% who do are less homophobic and tend to support gay and lesbian civil rights. So there's a real correlation between knowing people who are gay and lesbian and being on our side. And we need to, the more of us that are out, the more that's going to happen. Another reason is just the whole idea of creating change. Where is that one? Here we go. We get to educate. We get to educate people in what it's like to be gay. We get to talk to and support our gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered peers. We We get to participate more in gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender activities. And speaking out on these issues becomes really important. So it's a vital task for us in the sense of being a part of a community where everybody's hiding, or a lot of people are hiding, and as more and more of us come out, so others will come and join the group, and then we're known. And it's neat, because if you looked at 20 years ago, to when I was a high school student, nothing like this would have happened. I didn't know from anything about other gay people, it's a lot different today, and I think it's because people came out. I mean, my first experience with somebody coming out to me was a guy I worked with, and if he hadn't done that, if he hadn't shared that, I might have had my suspicions about what kind of guy he was, but I wouldn't even, he was the person who said, I'm gay, and that clicked. And from there, my coming out process really started happening. Okay, aspects. Just 1 second here. Okay, this is about aspects of coming out. Some people put this in terms of stages of coming out. I kind of tend to think that it's a lot more fluid than that, and it doesn't happen one step at a time. It kind of like these things kind of emerge, fade, and reappear throughout a person's process of coming out. When a child initially thinks that they might have homosexual feelings, they notice that they are attracted, if it's a male who's attracted to another boy, or a female attracted to another girl, the initial impulse is to deny that that's the case. And people go through a whole variety of defenses in order to do that. Then a person begins to maybe acknowledge that, hey, yeah, maybe these feelings are real. They certainly aren't going away. For me, it was Bob Miller, and I was in 6th grade, and he was this really cool kind of mix between a jock and a kind of a hood. We called them hoods in those days. So kind of funky guy who smoked cigarettes and but was great on the basketball court. And I had this incredible crush on him. And of course, rather than acknowledging the crush, what I tried to do was be like him. It was only later in reflecting back on my childhood that I realized that I had these strong feelings of attraction for people when I was like, 10, 11, 12 years old. And I had to deny it. So, but then you begin to acknowledge. During that acknowledgement phase, there's often a lot of experimentation that goes on. And this may be more true for males than females, but because of some gender differences, but that there may be some sexual experimentation that goes on along with the acknowledgement. And then a gradual acceptance. Over time, there's just no way you can deny this any longer, and start accepting it. And the thing that helps the most in terms of acceptance is knowing other people like you. And that's, again, the whole coming out process, the importance of it. I have experimentation then, and revelation. You begin to maybe share this with some other people that you trust in your life. And that can be your parents, it can be peers, it can be friends, it can be brothers and sisters. I came out first to my sisters before family. In fact, I came out to my sisters when I was about 21, and I didn't come out to my parents till I was almost 35. So different. If you look at the different what they call cohorts of people from different ages, like people who are teenagers now are one cohort, people who are in their 20s are another cohort, people in their 30s. My cohort of gay men tend to come out much later than people who are coming out now. Although I would venture that there's still many people who are teenagers who won't come out for many, many years. And people who are here and who know that they're gay and are out are probably more the rare people. And then grief and loss, and I put this up here. It's not often listed in many of the coming out stages, but for me, grief and loss is a real important part of this process, because what we're grieving and experiencing as loss is the we're not going to fulfill, as somebody mentioned, our parents' expectations for us. We're not going to fulfill maybe our own thoughts. Maybe we thought all the while we were growing up that we were going to grow up, get married, have children, raise a family, and kind of fit in with the status quo out there. Whatever our dreams, oftentimes there's grief and loss as we give up heterosexual privilege. You know, you can get married if you're straight. So there's some loss around that for people. It's acknowledging that you're going to have to deal with this constant issue, like Corky mentioned, of putting energy and time into this coming out process, rather than maybe some things that our counterparts who are heterosexual are focusing on their careers, they're building their homes or whatever. Not that we can't do those things too, but we've got to sometimes devote our time and things to other matters related to our sexual orientation. But over time, this gets integrated, and hopefully the integration results in a sense of oneself as a happy and whole and well-balanced individual with a lot of gay and lesbian friends and fitting into the community and kind of total acceptance, so that the fear is gone. Well, I don't know that it ever totally goes away. My own experience is that every time I have to come out again, I get a little bit scared at work or wherever. Okay. I'm going to grab a glass of water here. How does the identity development stuff fit with other people's experience? Does that seem to match up? I'm getting some nods. Anybody who doesn't? Or any other thoughts on identity development?
I guess I have to say, you finished up there saying that, the coming out process sort of ends, one of the results is, a lot of gay and lesbian friends, and that has been true for me, as I do have gay and lesbian friends, but I also have a lot of non-gay and lesbian friends. And so really, the coming out process for me has been to not just become a member of the gay and lesbian society, whatever that means, but to be a member of society at large.
Yeah, thanks. I agree, and I certainly want to include that. That integration for me too means that I don't have my life compartmentalized any longer. I don't have the gay self that goes out to bars and is wild and crazy and drinks, as opposed to the good psychologist person who works at the hospital and has that separate life. I'm the same person. I'm gay at work. I'm gay in my life in general, and people know that, and I have a lot of straight friends and all that kind of stuff who accepted me and welcomed me. My family, the same thing. By the way, I should have come out to my parents much earlier than I did. They both, when I told them, they both said, "Oh, we know that." It's like, well, why didn't you say so? My mom admitted she hoped that I was bisexual, because if she kept hoping that I would choose to be with a woman rather than a man, because she didn't feel like that would be the best for me to be gay because of all the prejudice in society. She's come around in a lot of ways, but they both had an idea. My dad said he'd known since I was a child. Would have been nice if he had helped me with that, but his. Okay. Telling parents. How comfortable, I think this first one is really getting clear with yourself that you're gay or lesbian or bisexual or whatever before you make the decision. Unless you have the kind of relationship with your parents where if you're in that sort of sorting out process, they might be able to help you. If you have that kind of relationship with them and you feel like you could do that, that might work. If they're open-minded and you know that they support lesbian and gay people, that's fine. How well do you know your parents? What are their attitudes and beliefs, values? Where do they stand on social and political issues that are going on? Think about all those kinds of things. It helps you to gauge in some way what their reaction might be and prepare yourself a little bit more for how you're going to handle the whole coming out to them. If you're a counselor or somebody who is a parent, I'd like you to think about these things in terms of how you might use these to help somebody who's in this process. And if you're an adult who's here, just maybe thinking back about what it would have been like to be a teenager or young adult, even younger adult than you already are. how close are you to your parents? And I think this is critical because that's another thing that can help you gauge what their reaction is going to be. Is the timing right? Now, my mom said that the timing was right. As far as she was concerned, I had waited to just the right time. She was in a space in her life where she felt like she could hear it. That was good. So I mean, maybe it worked out the right way. But you know, what else is going on in the family? That's a critical thing. If this is if there's a lot of parental conflict right at that time, or things like if somebody was just diagnosed with some illness or things like that, and the family's experiencing other life stressors, you want to think about how that's going to be handled and integrated. At the same time, you might wait forever, and I don't want people to go for the classic story of people waiting because they don't want to hurt their parents in some way could go on for a long, long time, and that was big for me. I was afraid of hurting. My mom's Catholic, and I was afraid of her thinking I would be immoral and how that would hurt her. Turns out she doesn't agree with the Catholic Church on that position. The next thing down there, how economically and emotionally dependent are you on your parents? And I think this is a critical one. Somebody mentioned losing their job by coming out. And it's the same thing with if you're a child who's still dependent on parents, or that if they're going to be you're going to be counting on them to help you with college tuition and things like that, and they're not people who are likely to accept your sexual orientation, they may withdraw support. There are many stories of people coming out and getting kicked out of their house with the withdrawal of financial and emotional support. So that's something to think about. How safe are you in your home? If you're in an abusive situation, I think it's important to ask yourself, is this information going to be used as a reason, a validation for some reason to abuse, either emotionally, verbally, or physically? And do you have a support system? Do you have other people you can go to, or are you living isolated at this point? Hopefully most of the people here would have some type of support system. How much information do you have, and are you able to share it with your patients or your parents? There's tons of information around here, so if you don't have information, PFLAG has brought a whole table full of things that are really useful, pamphlets and that sort of thing.
I'd like to suggest for the first one, where it says it's the timing right, I don't suggest taking out of major holidays. No, I've had friends who chose that time, and it seems to be a very, very bad thing for parents to have their children come home and for Christmas be told they're queer. So,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily just, is there a crisis going on in the family, but major holidays, like avoid Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, July is probably very festive holiday. But yeah, I've had friends who, I've also had friends who were a bit too creative, I thought, in how they came out with that, they got came home, told his parents he was coming home, and it's very important to tell them, so I'm like, do what, they're all worried. He decides to tell them that he's dying, that he has cancer and he's dying, and his parents are like, no, and his mother starts to cry, he's like, no, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I
Right.
thought that was a bit harsh.
Any other thoughts on telling parents things people should consider before telling parents? I found there's a couple of books that are out recently. So You Want to Be a Lesbian is one of them, and it has things in it like lesbian cuisine, beyond granola and back again.
Appreciate that book.
Hastings, actually. No, Dad, not Lebanese, lesbian. And then the other is the Gay Manual, and there's a few suggestions in here for the men. 10 things not to say when telling your mother. I'm just going to read 5 of them. He looks just like you, Mom. Now I know why you always hated to wear heels. it's not so bad. I could be an axe murderer. Don't blame yourself. I think I got it from Dad. And finally, you should let me do something with that hair. Good stuff. And then, for the women, 5 things you should do before coming out. Actually sleep with another woman is here. Now, that may be something you want to consider. Remember, this is humor. Check with your local lesbian draft board to make sure they're not over quota for the month. Make sure you can drink herbal tea without gagging. Buy some politically conscious t-shirts and wear them all the time. Pick an interesting method of transportation, motorcycle, 4-wheel drive vehicle, bicycle, or Birkenstocks, and stick with it. Good stuff. Okay, moving on then to parent reactions of the family. I guess I want to throw in too, the stuff I was talking about could apply equally to siblings, thinking about some of the stuff when you want to tell siblings, your brothers and sisters who, what's going on in their lives, all those same kinds of things you might want to consider before that. With my sister, it was a funny story because I'd come back to Chicago after being in Boston for a summer, and I'd met somebody, and I decided I was going to move back to Boston. I was trying to tell my family why I wanted to live in Boston, and I was going on about the harbor and being by the ocean, all this stuff, and so of course they all, my parents were like, well, did you meet a girl or something? And oh no, it's not that. I really just, I really like Boston. And so after everybody was away, my sister says, so you didn't meet a girl that you're interested in? I said, no. And she said, well, did you meet a boy? And my jaw dropped. I didn't think she knew. So I had a martini, I think, to calm myself down. Okay. So what are some reactions, possible reactions of families? Shock. One of the things that can happen is no one says anything. The silent. Does that happen? The silent. Denial. No, I don't believe it. It's just a phase you're going through. That one is a real favorite, especially for people who are adolescent. That parents react with the idea that it's a phase, that it's something that will pass. Anger. How could you make such a stupid decision? Don't think you're going to live in this house. What do you think you're doing to the family? Those kinds of reactions.
I'll never have grandchildren.
I'll never have grandchildren. Any others? Anger. Grief. I feel so bad for you. My mom was kind of weighing in on that side a little. Guilt, where did I go wrong? It's all my fault. That kind of stuff. You hear that one. Bargaining and pleading. I'm sure you can be straight. We'll call a therapist and get you in to see somebody.
We'll buy you a car.
Are your grandparents thinking of adopting?
They'll say things like, you went out with so-and-so, I know if you keep trying, I'm sure you can get over this. How about let's go pray together?
How about it's bad experiences with men?
Yes.
I got
Someone older.
Did someone older? Yeah.
I got that. Yeah, what happened?
Were you molested? The research on that shows that even boys who were molested by male figures do not necessarily develop homosexual orientation or have a homosexual orientation. But a lot of therapists are still out there trying to convert people, and there's certainly a lot of church leaders who are doing that also. So beware. And we want to help our peers who might have those experiences by letting them know what the facts are. And the facts on changing sexual orientation are that it doesn't work. The people that try to change sexual orientation have a couple of different outcomes. It usually involves repression and of some kind, and there may be an attempt at some type of a relationship with a woman, but it's usually people will admit down the road that it's not really satisfying, that they still have the sexual desires for their same-gender people. So and the other one that can happen is that they can lose all sexual interest altogether. Okay, some things to think about when telling peers. How long does this talk last? I forgot.
We still have about
20 minutes? Okay. Telling peers. Some things to consider. Whom do you tell? It should be people who've gained your trust through other things. If you're thinking about telling somebody, make sure you ask yourself, is this somebody I've told other things to? How have they respected my confidences in the past? Are they likely to go and make it a public announcement? Those kinds of things are really important. You want to tell people who understand the importance of your privacy, and people who have values that are similar to yours, that are, and the person values your safety. They're not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize you. So don't leave yourself open to verbal or physical harassment. That's the key thing there. When and where, maybe not in gym class or in the cafeteria. You don't want somebody jumping out, "You're what?" And then how, this is something everybody's got to decide on for themselves. How do you tell your friends? You want to lead up to it? Do you want to just come right out with it? Those kinds of things. And everybody's got to think about what's your personal style of relating to people and sharing important personal information. Okay, now, a lot of the rest of this is going to be for people here who are not lesbian or gay, but those of us who are, have something to learn from it as well. Parents supported their daughters and sons, and I think Corky's going to be presenting the next session about some of this. And Chuck, are you both talking? Great. First of all, reaffirm love and support. And for those of us who are gay and lesbian, I think we can use this as a list for things that we'd like from our parents, and maybe have to tell them that this is what we'd like if we come out with it. Unconditional love. I mean, that's what it's basically about. Parents need to get over the idea, this isn't just about someone's behavior, this is about who they are. Being there and letting them know that the person, letting your child know that it was right for you to come out and tell me, I'm really glad you told me this, so now I know who you are, I know what you're struggling with, and I really want to be able to respond to you. Give yourself time. I think that's the other thing. Parents need to give themselves time, especially if they are at odds with it from some religious or moral standpoint. Try and keep communications open, ask questions, listen, encourage discussion, and seek out support and information. I think there are gay and lesbian affirmative therapists out there, as well as people who aren't, and parents sometimes may need to seek that type of support. PFLAG is the best, as far as I'm concerned, in this arena. And the brochures and pamphlets that I've sent my mom and Dad on this have been really essential in helping them rethink things, because they didn't have this information. Where do they get their information? From movies, which mostly depict homosexuals as either weak or wicked. And my father, a lot of it got his information when he was in the service, and the kind of attitudes that are in the service towards gays and lesbians. So they need that information. I think parents should avoid turning the disclosure into a family crisis. It's not a crisis. This is something positive. Someone's being honest. Your child's being honest with you. So you want to develop a positive atmosphere and speak out against homophobia. I think a key is teaching other heterosexual children, brothers and sisters or friends, to respect lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender siblings. And parents can become role models for other parents. And there's two people here who, to me, are incredible role models and Chuck and Corrigan, you effused about me, so I'm going to do the same about both of you. I've been so impressed with the level of involvement and commitment. They don't just, kind of give lip service to this. They're out here doing this stuff all the time, and you see the way many people relate to them. I came in last night, and Chuck had his arm around somebody who was here, and that kind of support just, means so much to me. That we have parent figures amongst us who fulfill these kinds of qualities. What should we want from friends, and how can people who are not gay or lesbian support? I think it's really important that friends don't assume that the lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgendered friend knows you are supportive. You have to show them. You can't just assume that, oh, I'm cool about it. One of my nephews has a good friend. He's in dental school, and a good friend of his came out recently. And he was telling me a story about a teacher who said something about AIDS and homosexuals, was equating homosexuality with AIDS, and I think he said, he was talking about a specific medication, encyclovir, and he said encycloqueer. This is a professor in a dental school, and my nephew's in that class, and his friend is in the class too. And when I asked my nephew if he had spoke up and said something, because he said he was aware that his friend Gene was really hurting, and he saw him put his head down, and my nephew said no, and I gave him hell about it. I said, Jeff, what would you have to lose for speaking up and saying, that's really not okay? And if you can't do it in class, do it anonymously somehow. But somebody like that shouldn't be allowed to keep going on making those kinds of remarks in a professional school. That's not at all appropriate. Discuss reservations and concerns. Be open. If a friend, if I came out to a friend and they didn't really like it, I'd want to know why and be able to talk with them. Continue communicating. Don't assume your lesbian, same-sex lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender friend is sexually attracted to you, and this comes out a lot. You tell people you're gay and they automatically think you're coming on to them or something. And a lot of people hold the attitude that if you're gay or lesbian, you're attracted to everyone who is male or female, whatever you are, which, sorry, I have discriminating tastes. Celebrate diversity and enjoy your friends' experiences. I think the idea here is that this is something to be happy about and not freaked out or sad about. Okay. And this kind of ties into what Jay had said earlier about coming out being an ongoing thing, and that the integration of a sexual identity, whether it's gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgendered, is that it's constantly coming out. And I don't know why I didn't have school up there as the first one, because that's the first thing I wanted to address, which is coming out at school. For some people, they're willing to take the risk in high school and then certainly in college to come out. And I wasn't at all, but it's incredible to me today that there are. And I think there's things to think about. How are you going to handle it if you do and you deal with mass rejection and you become isolated, lonely. You're going to need support from somewhere. And if you were in a major city, you could probably go to a gay or lesbian youth outreach center, which many cities today have. If you're in college, you can go to Lambda. I don't know if Lambda here in Missoula allows high school age students to join. They do. So that's great. So getting support there is really that's one way you can gain the kind of support you need for school. It's really important to have that kind of support. I think I've known many gay or lesbian adolescents who it became known in their high school that they were gay, and they had to leave because of the harassment. It's happened in Helena several times, I think. But there's been young people over there who had to drop out of school and go to school somewhere else, or go to a private school, or go to school in another city because they were of the harassment and physical abuse. Coming out at work I think here the key question: what kind of place do you work in? Right? If you're going to lose your job, it's probably not worth it. What's the environment like? There's a lot of companies today, IBM and Apple and a number of other companies have insurance benefits and things like that for partners, but there's a lot of companies where the top level people are all homophobic, and you come out there, you're likely to lose your job. And why ENDA is so important, the amendment that was just passed by the Congress, is that it's fine for somebody to fire you just for being lesbian or gay. I've read a number of legal cases in which somebody was lesbian or gay. They challenged it in court, that was the reason they were fired. The judge didn't call for any supporting evidence of performance decline or anything. He simply upheld the right of the employer to fire the person simply on the basis of a person's sexual orientation. In the neighborhood, and this is a neat one for me because it's like living in Helena now, I have this neighborhood. When I lived in Chicago, I lived in the gay and lesbian neighborhood, and being out in that neighborhood wasn't any big deal. But being out in my neighborhood, and it's like it kind of goes through your mind. Well, what do they think? If I have a party and it's all men come to this party, what are they thinking, and that sort of thing. So I think it's kind of fun to think about being that visible in a community where you live, right in your own neighborhood. And then politically, and this is just a little bit of a sales pitch to get everybody to participate in pride events, to report any type of lesbian, gay bashings that you're aware of, to discuss homophobia with heterosexuals and educate people, to attend demonstrations, to write letters, to join lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender political organizations. There's the Human Rights Campaign. There's the Gay and Lesbian Task Force. Those are national ones. Certainly join Pride. All those kinds of things. This is the ongoing work of coming out. The more you get involved, the more out you're going to be. And believe me, I think that it will be good for you. I have not had one negative experience since coming to Montana 3 years ago with being fully out. And in fact, I think it's benefited me in areas where I didn't think it would, like at work. I think part of the reason I got the internship I did at Montana State University was because when I interviewed, I told them I was a gay person. And I think that was part of their reason for wanting me to come. So it's not always negative. And then, register and vote if you're of voting age. Finally, why come out? Just a few more things to leave you with. Life becomes less complicated when we're out. It just does. I mean, I don't have to hide this part of myself here and this part of myself and remember who I've told what to. And it gets just outrageous when you're trying to do all that. A fuller and healthier life. I think internalized homophobia is real. Some people don't. I do. I don't believe you can grow up in our culture without internalizing the belief that homosexuality is a bad thing. When I, as a gay person, hold that to be true about myself, I'm not feeling very good. And my self-esteem suffers. And so I think freeing myself from homophobia is very related to the coming out process. Without being, the more I'm out, the more I feel good about myself. I'm leading a fuller and healthier life. And the idea that I have straight friends, it's great. I love the straight people in my life, but I have to be a little bit honest and share that it means, at this point still, it means a lot more to me that I have gay and lesbian friends, and I feel a little bit closer to, and maybe that means I'm not as integrated as I'd like to be or whatever, but it sure means a lot to me to fit in and belong with a bunch of gay and lesbian people. So it's wonderful to be here today, just to be with this group, because for the most part, my day, involves relating with heterosexuals most of the time. And it's neat to be with people like yourself, and I think that would hold out whether you was an ethnic or racial group. It's like nice to be with people like you. You learn who your true friends are. If people don't accept you, and I've lost friends because of being gay. I had one friend who I'd been in the seminary with who was very, this was somebody who was gay, but had bought the church's party line that being homosexual was sinful. And so I've lost that friend. I couldn't deal with having somebody in my life who held that to be true about me. You'll know what it's like to be loved for who you are, and I think that's a wonderful thing. There's nothing like it. Gain the understanding support of friends and relatives. My family relationships, and I recently at a Pride board meeting, we went around the room and talked about, one thing, the thing you're most happy about in your life. And for me at that time, it was that my family and I had, my relationship had improved so much, and I felt like I was really loved and accepted and drawn into the family. So that's a wonderful thing. And visibility will help reduce homophobia. Again, I'm coming back to that theme of, the more of us that are out there, the better. So those are all good reasons for coming out, in spite of the challenges, the fears, and I think if you do it in a way where you have somebody supporting you and you're thoughtful and reflective about when to do it, how to do it, and that sort of thing, it's going to be to your benefit. So, are there questions, thoughts?
Well, I have a question about, it seems to me like I have a lot of women friends who are late 30s, 40s, who've been married, had children, come out at that point. Some of whom really didn't know at all, didn't acknowledge that part. Is that a phenomenon? Is that something that is more frequent?
It's certainly, I think there's a whole range of how the coming out and when coming out happens. I think denial and repression, I kind of believe that those are psychological mechanisms that you can shut out memories and you can shut out ideas, beliefs about yourself completely, and that you may very well have always been a lesbian or always have been a gay man, and the same is true for many gay men I know who don't come out into their 30s or 40s. You just repress it. In fact, a client that I've worked with recently just didn't have sex until they got in their late 30s. They didn't pay any attention to that whole part of their life, and weren't even aware that they weren't paying attention. It just goes to show how we can wall off a whole aspect of who we are. I think that happens. David?
And just one else I add, I think that in our culture, the expectations for men and women are very different. And I think it's the expectations to marry are much stronger for women than possibly for men. And that may also have something to do with it as well.
I would say, are there any women here that can address that
Yeah.
might have that experience?
Actually, I do. There's probably many, many different reasons why, but for me, I had a model of how my family would treat a gay or lesbian. My uncle was gay, and he was practically excommunicated from the family, and I'm still not out to them because I'm scared to death of how they'll treat me, because my model was they treated him like crap. So,
Yeah.
and I repressed that my whole life. So I think that I could have married when I was in high school, but I didn't, because any little twinge that I did have, that was pushed away right away, because I didn't want to be treated like my uncle was treated.
Did everybody hear what she had to say? That her family had treated her uncle so poorly that she didn't want to be treated the same way, and just shut out her sexual orientation.
I graduated high school in June of '87, and I got married in June of 1987. My father's a deacon in the Southern Baptist Church, and I was raised that was wrong. I mean, I didn't even know what the word was in high school. I knew I kissed a girl, and then I liked it. But I knew that was wrong, so I married my best friend, and a guy. And it was unfair to him, and it was unfair to me, and it worked out for the best. But yeah, so it happens. I wanted so badly to be just like everyone else. I just wanted to be normal, damn it. And I am normal. But it just took me a while to figure out that being gay is normal. So.
I kept up that facade of the little picket fence, husband and child for 8 years, being married. And, to please the family, just keep them happy.
So were you aware of the same-sex feeling? But you just didn't.
I knew when I was a kid. I had a crush at 5 years old, kindergarten. So
So for some people, it's a conscious process of knowing it, but not acting on it, and leading a straight life, even though they know that that's not really who they are. For other people, they may really think they're straight. They may not even be aware, and all of a sudden, some things start happening in their life that trigger an awareness of who they really are.
They've made so much of it being a choice that younger kids are thinking, oh, it actually is, and I need to choose this way.
Right. Yeah, the whole issue of choice is still there for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a whole aspect of our country and civilization, because in medical school, there's only 4 hours in the maybe 10 or 12 years of medical school that they even talk about.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't talk about invisibility, but growing up, there just wasn't anybody who I knew who was gay. There was no role models. And I guess that's another important part about why coming out, because we need to be role models for other people. Many of us didn't have them, and that's really something missing. I tell an interesting story about what's going on in biological research right now, and some of it is going on right here in Montana. I met yesterday with a woman over in Helena who's doing research on sheep, and only in Montana.
Now I know why they're nervous.
To summarize, and I may not do justice so I don't take this verbatim or word, I may not have it all right, but basically what she talked about is that, with this domesticated group of animals, they're able to really do a lot more research than they are in terms of observing animals in the wild or those sorts of things, to get a fuller spectrum of what a homosexual sheep is all about, not just in terms of liking to have sex with other male sheep, but, and they're, of course, they're doing it only on males, and she told me the reason they're not doing it on lesbians is that the women sheep or female sheep are so passive that it's hard, anybody can, if a sheep goes and mounts a male sheep mounts them, they'll let them, even though they may not want it. So,
By the expression of it.
So anyway, what they're finding out with sheep is that not only is their sexual orientation related to sexual desire, there's the socialization experiences, and their whole perceptual system. What they've done biopsies of the brain, and they can kill these sheep and look at their brains, and psychological research can get cruel. But when they look at it, their brains are way different than the heterosexual sheep. And they're different in the whole perceptual area of the brain, suggesting that not only is sexual orientation related to same-sex desire, but it may be related to a whole array of issues having to do with gender, from masculinization on one point to feminization on another. And that why gay men or lesbians, for instance, may have certain stereotypical interests, pursuits, activities they enjoy, that sort of thing, may all be tied in to genetics. So we're not just talking here about what we like to do in bed. We're talking about a whole lot more about a person that could be biologically determined. So it's going to be fascinating in the next 10 to 15 years, with the work that they are doing in this area, I think. And this is only one study. So, well, anyway, I really appreciated the opportunity to speak, and Kathy's coming up, giving me the sign. It's time, and I look forward to the rest of the weekend with all of you. Thanks for being here.